Yes, it is. Welcome into Warriors Live. Mark Randy with you live from Chase Center. We are an hour and a half away from tip-off. Game 3, Warriors and Rockets. This series, of course, knotted at a game apiece, which means this Game 3 is really, really important. Again, welcome in. Mark Randy with you. It's Warriors Live presented by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Just Mark Randy with you for pregame today here on Warriors Live, but don't worry, it will be Evan Giddings and myself. We will double team for Warriors wrap-up once this game is over, and of course, Warrior fans hoping it's a celebratory Warriors wrap-up as the Dubs return home to take on the Houston Rockets in a really important Game 3 when the Warriors and the Rockets, they split Games 1 and 2 in Houston. Of course, the Warriors won Game 1 by a final score of 95-85. They really dominated that game on the defensive end, did not let Houston get into any kind of offensive rhythm. The Rockets shot only 39% in that game. Steph scored 31. Jimmy scored 25. Offensively, that was nearly enough. When you only hold your opponents to 85 points. And then in Game 2, it was kind of a similar game for the Warriors offensively. I mean, they scored 94 points, only 1 point fewer than they did in Game 1. But Houston got a lot more going offensively. Jalen Green scored 38. Şengün had 17 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Rockets put up 109 points. As I mentioned, the Warriors only 94 in Game 2. And a big reason for that, both maybe the Warriors' struggles offensively and what the Rockets did offensively is because of what happened near the end of the first quarter in Game 2 when Jimmy Butler upended, jumping for a defensive rebound by Amen Thompson. I know a lot of Warrior fans barking that it was dirty. I personally did not think it was a dirty play, just unfortunate circumstance. Jimmy Butler goes tumbling down to the floor, lands on his backside, stayed in the game to shoot the free throws as a result of the foul. Stayed in for a defensive possession, then gingerly walked to the locker room, got x-rays taken. They came back negative, but he still was not feeling good enough to return to the game, so he missed the rest of that game. Warriors lose. Maybe not as a result, but it certainly did not help without Jimmy Butler. The Warriors lose Game 2, 109-94, the final, and that evened up the series at one game apiece as it shifts to San Francisco. Again, we're about an hour and a half away from tip-off here at Chase Center, and I'm with you until 5 o'clock over the next 60 minutes to get you ready for this basketball game. Okay, so I know what everyone's thinking. How is Jimmy Butler? In fact, I'm already seeing the question come in on our YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union, and you can join the conversation. YouTube.com/957 the game. You can also hit us up on our text line at 888-957-9570. That is the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. Again, at 888-957-9570. I'm not going to keep you guys waiting any longer. Let's get to our injury report brought to you by Boxer and Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. We begin with the Warriors. Jimmy Butler dealing with a left pelvic contusion that he suffered again at the very tail end of the first quarter of Game 2. He is officially questionable. And Steve Kerr, speaking pregame about 15 or 20 minutes ago, said, quote, Jimmy Butler will try to get some work done and see if he can go. So no firm determination from Steve Kerr on Jimmy Butler's status. Jimmy Butler's going to get some work in both on the court and get some treatment in from the Warriors medical staff. And then the team will make a decision if Jimmy Butler is going to be able to go. So it's officially a questionable tag still for Jimmy Butler at this hour. Again, Steve Kerr speaking about 15 or 20 minutes ago says, quote, Jimmy Butler will try to get some work done and see if he can go. If I learn anything more about Jimmy Butler's status over the next 55 minutes, I'll keep you updated here on Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game. So, no firm determination. We do not yet know about Jimmy Butler. I will say it is good news that he's not already ruled out. There is, at the very least, a possibility that he's going to play. Some of it may be, even if the Warriors don't feel great about it, they desperately need Jimmy Butler. I think we saw that in quarters 2 through 4 in game number 2 when the Rockets won that game 109-94. This is an entirely different team with and without Jimmy Butler, so the Warriors really need him. But this this is also one of the toughest players in the NBA. It would take a lot to keep Jimmy Butler out of this game, so I'm not predicting anything. But again, the fact that he is not officially out already, I think, is a good sign for the Warriors. Okay, there is one other name on the Warriors injury report. Gary Payton II is questionable with a right shoulder strain. Steve Kerr, though, also speaking pregame, says, quote, he should be good to play. So GP2 questionable, but Steve Kerr says, again, quote, that GP2 should be good to play. So it seems like more like a probable tag for Gary Payton II as opposed to questionable, at least according to what Steve Kerr said. Pre-game, I'm fielding a question from Arnell on our YouTube chat, and shout out to Arnell. Appreciate you tuning in on Pajemski. Pajemski not on the injury report, so he should be good to go. You recall he was a late addition to the injury report on Wednesday ahead of Game 2 because of an illness. That has passed, at least to the point where he's not listed with it on the injury report at all. He is off that injury report entirely, which means Pajemski should be good to go. Technically speaking, Steph Curry is on the injury report, but he's available. They just have him listed because he'll have his right thumb taped up still from when he jammed it very late in the regular season, the second to last game of the regular season versus the Blazers up in Portland. But he's available, and nothing has really changed with Steph Curry's status. So again, Gary Payton II is questionable, but is expected to play according to Steve Kerr, and Jimmy Butler is indeed questionable, and it feels like a pretty true questionable. Steve Kerr saying pregame he's going to get some work done, both warming up himself and getting some treatment from the Warriors medical staff, and then Jimmy Butler and the team will make a decision from there. For the Rockets, it's the same injury report as each of the previous two games. Jock Landale and Jayshawn Tate, they remain out when healthy. These guys are rotation pieces in the regular season, but even if they were healthy and available to play in this series, we likely would not see much of them at all. So really not much expected from the Rockets in terms of the injury report. They basically have everybody that they are intending to play available in this one. Okay, so how do the Warriors adjust if they have to play this game with Jimmy Butler, if they have to play this game without Jimmy Butler? I think, obviously, if it's with Jimmy Butler, it's going to look largely the same. I don't think, even if he plays, that we're going to see a 100% Jimmy Butler. It is mostly, at least as far as I understand it, and it's very easy for me to say it, not having a pelvic contusion and not having to play a postseason basketball game with a left pelvic contusion. But it is essentially, from what I understand, a pain tolerance issue. It is, can Jimmy Butler deal with the pain? And it is extremely, extremely painful, I'm sure. The Warriors medical staff is going to do everything that they can to ease that pain on him. But this is, again, one of the tougher dudes in the NBA, and it's going to take a lot to keep him off the floor, but we shall see. So what do the Warriors do if Jimmy Butler cannot go in this game? Well, it feels like the adjustment or the counter move for the Warriors, if Jimmy Butler can't play, is Jonathan Kuminga. And that's what the move was in game number 2. Kuminga got his first action in a handful of games he last played. I mentioned that game in Portland, the second to last game of the regular season, when Steph jammed his thumb. That was the last time before game 2 that Jonathan Kuminga played. He did not play on that Sunday to close the regular season versus the Clippers. He did not play in the play-in versus the Grizzlies, and he did not play in Game 1 versus the Rockets. But he played in Game 2 because Jimmy Butler went down late in the first quarter. Kuminga played essentially the entire second quarter and then got normal rotation minutes in the second half. He finished that game, Kuminga did, playing 26 minutes. He scored 11 points. He had 3 rebounds and 2 assists. Turned the ball over once, blocked the shot as well, committed a couple of personal fouls, was 4 for 12 from the field and 2 for 5 from downtown. Considering that it was his first action in nearly 2 weeks, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination was it bad, but it also wasn't amazing to the point where I think Jonathan Kuminga plays even if Jimmy Butler is healthy. I think we are at a point where if the Warriors are fully healthy, Kuminga still is not going to play. I don't think anything has changed in that regard, but just simply based on the bodies that the Warriors have and the types of players that they have, if Jimmy Butler either cannot play or is extremely limited, can't play anywhere near his normal allotment of minutes, I think just from a purely bodies perspective, Jonathan Kuminga almost has to play. And what kind of Kuminga are we going to get? It's really difficult to predict because on one end, you have the Golden State Warriors who haven't played Jonathan Kuminga a lot of late, and now you're asking a young player who I would imagine probably is a little bit frustrated by not playing of late, and you're asking him to shake off rust and to step into a series in the biggest moment and not only not be a reason why you lose, but be a reason why you might win a basketball game because you're filling in for Jimmy Butler, who, I mean, behind Stephen Curry is probably the Warriors' most important player. Draymond Green is right up there as well, and Draymond's going to have to be a whole lot better in Game 2. But I think the key for Kuminga isn't to have in your mind that you're replacing Jimmy Butler. No individual player is going to be replacing Jimmy Butler. It's going to have to be a by-committee approach. And I think Draymond, as I just mentioned, is going to have to be a whole lot better if Jimmy Butler does not play. And again, if you're just joining us, we do not yet know. Getting a couple more questions coming in and appreciate you chiming in. Steve Kerr, when asked about Jimmy Butler's status, he said, or asked if he knows if Jimmy Butler is going to play or not. Steve Kerr said, quote, "Not yet. He'll try to get some work done downstairs and see if he can go." Then he was asked about Gary Payton II, who's questionable with a shoulder issue, and Steve Kerr said, quote, "Gary should be good to go." So we shall see on Jimmy Butler, but it does seem like GP2 is good to go. But again, if Jimmy does not play, speaking in the hypothetical here, you're going to need a lot of help from everybody else. You're going to need Kuminga to come in and play smart, solid basketball. You're going to need Draymond Green to play a whole lot better than he did in Game 2. I'm sure if you asked Draymond Green about his performance in Game 2, he would say that he did not play particularly well. You're going to need Steph Curry to shoot better from the field than he did in Game 2 when he was 6 for 15 from the field. You're going to need Moses Moody to make a few more shots, although he was efficient shooting the basketball on Wednesday in Game 2. You're going to need more from him. You're going to need Pajemski, who was battling an illness on Wednesday in Game 2, to look like an entirely different basketball player. He went 0 in the entire game in 14 minutes. Pajemski did not make a single shot, did not grab a single rebound, did not record a single assist, had no steals, had no blocks, had no turnovers, had no personal fouls, did not record a statistic other than shot attempts. You're going to need Pajemski to be a whole lot better. So I know so much of the conversation of late has been on Jonathan Kuminga and why isn't he playing? What can he do in order to play? And now the conversation is, well, he needs to step up in the absence of Jimmy Butler if that does happen. And yeah, no doubt he does. The Warriors are going to need him. But it's not like this is just all right, Jimmy's out. Here's our new Jimmy. It's Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga, do what Jimmy does. That is way too much to ask for a 22-year-old who has not played a lot of game action over the last couple of weeks. And this is not that it was necessarily the wrong decision, because I don't think I feel that way particularly, but this is the risk that you run. This is the risk you run when you take Kuminga out of the rotation, knowing that at some point likely you're going to need him. You hope that it's not because one of your star players goes down with an injury, but that's the reality, and now you're in a spot where the player that you need to rely on in Jonathan Kuminga maybe I'm not even saying anything about like his mentals and if he's feeling good and if he's not frustrated or anything like that, but just talking about purely from a basketball perspective, being thrown into a series like this in this moment when you haven't played a lot of late, it's not the easiest thing to do. So that is the risk the Warriors run, but I think in their mind, they're going to do whatever they think is best to win a basketball game on a given day, and if a decision that they make trying to win a basketball game today causes a problem for them down the road, they're going to deal with that problem when it pops up down the road, and potentially maybe that problem is popping up because Kuminga did not look particularly smooth or in rhythm, and that's not a knock on Kuminga. It is just the reality of how difficult it is to get thrown into the fire of a series when you have not played basketball at that level in a real postseason environment, really in a long time for Kuminga, but in any kind of NBA environment in a couple of weeks, not just postseason, but regular season as well. So we shall see. On Jimmy Butler's status, again, we do not yet know. If you're just joining us, Steve Kerr speaking pregame was asked if he has anything to say about whether Jimmy is going to play tonight. Steve Kerr said again, quote, "Not yet. He'll try to get some work done downstairs and see if he can go." I would imagine Steve Kerr is referring to their practice court downstairs off to the side here at Chase Center. Not on the actual main floor at Chase Center for all the fans filing in to see. He's going to be out on a side practice court away from public eyes. I would imagine the Warriors coaching staff, Steve Kerr included, and the medical staff are going to be observing him. Once he wraps up, he might get a little bit of work done from the medical staff, and then the Warriors will collectively make a decision on Jimmy Butler's status. I personally feel like Jimmy Butler would absolutely do anything possible to play in this basketball game, but that's just me speculating at this point. We shall see, and if I get an update from you for you on Jimmy Butler, I will, of course, let you know before I get on out of here coming up in about 30 minutes, or a little more than 30 minutes. In about 40 minutes, I'll get on out of here, and I'll make way for Tim Roy and Tom Tolbert, and then they'll let you know if I don't have an update by then. But that is the latest on Jimmy Butler. We just do not simply know just yet how the Warriors are going to be attacking this basketball game, because Jimmy Butler's status is still up in the air. He is a true questionable tag for this game, and it does appear like it's going to come down to game time, and we might get a game time decision for Jimmy Butler. On the other side of the floor, how do the Warriors, with or without Jimmy Butler? Of course, it's going to be more difficult without Jimmy because he is a big part of this defense. But how do you not allow the others for the Rockets to get going? I thought the game one box score for Houston is like a dream for the Warriors. And it helps, of course, because the Rockets missed a ton of shots. But even just the shot distribution, I think it worked out pretty well for the Warriors. Alperen Şengün, he's going to get his. I think the Warriors have a decision to make on how they want to defend Şengün. Do they want to just allow Şengün to get his 25 points, but try to take away everybody else? Do they want to make life really difficult on Şengün and make him only maybe score 14 or 15 points? But then you run the risk of someone like a Jalen Green catching fire, a Dylan Brooks catching fire. Maybe Fred VanVleet breaks out of his crazy shooting slump and he makes 4 or 5 threes in a game. We shall see. But I thought game one was the right game plan for the Warriors defensively. Şengün got 26 and 9, but I think the big number, if you are a stats person and you're trying to focus on what should the Warriors not allow, I think it is the assist category for Alperen Şengün. Make Şengün a scorer. Make him work for his buckets versus Draymond Green. He's going to get some. He's a very skilled player. He's a very talented player. But make him really work hard for his points. But don't collapse off of the Houston shooters, even though they don't have a lot of really good shooters. Still, do not collapse off of them because once the Rockets are able to get everybody else kicking in, or maybe just one singular player scoring nearly 38 points, hit Jalen Green 38 points in game two, that makes the Rockets a whole lot more difficult to try to beat. So I think the key is the Şengün assist category. I mentioned only one assist in game one for Şengün. He was the guy who was getting the ball, and for the most part, he was trying to score. And when he wasn't scoring, he was passing out to shooters who were missing shots. Some of it was just simply the Rockets missing open shots, but so much of it was the Warriors just allowing Fred VanVleet everything that he wanted. The difference for the Rockets in game two was those Şengün kickouts, once he realized that he could not score, were not to Fred VanVleet. They were to an in-rhythm Jalen Green. Instead of only one assist in game one, Şengün had 7 assists in game two. He had only 17 points, right? 17 versus 26 points. But I thought Şengün was so much more effective for the Rockets against this Warriors defense in game two because his passes were leading to buckets for the Rockets, when in game one he wasn't finding a lot of passing lanes, and when he was, it was to non-reliable shooters, at least not in game number one. So the assist category for Şengün is really important to me. I also think there is a chance that Jalen Green, what he did in game two, lends him a little bit too much confidence, and we see him jack up a lot of shots early in this basketball game. And hell, he might still be on fire from Wednesday. I mean, he had 38 points. He was 13 for 25 from the field, 8 of 18 from downtown. He was awesome. The most prolific scorer in that game by a mile. And this was a game that featured Steph Curry. Jalen Green was doing his best Steph Curry impression at times from behind the arc. So maybe he still is on fire. But I trust the numbers and his shooting percentage and the kind of player that he is. He's a hoister. He gets them up. And if he's feeling good about himself, he's not going to be shy about it. There is a chance that Jalen Green gets like 8 shots up in the first 10 minutes of this game and makes one of them. And the Warriors, as a result, are able to get consistent stops, and they get out in transition, and they build a lead. Not necessarily smart to play with fire like that. Like, I'd still much rather have Fred VanVleet shooting those shots than Jalen Green. But I think the game within the game is the Warriors know Jalen Green is a really streaky and confident shooter once he gets going. And he still feels pretty darn good about himself. From Wednesday, he might put up a bunch of shots early. And if it's Jalen Green shooting contested threes as opposed to Şengün getting going down low, I might prefer that as long as it is contested threes and the Warriors are challenging those shots. That's where Moses Moody's going to come in defensively in this game, because it has been Moody for the most part who has been challenged with the job of defending Jalen Green. And I don't think you need to look any further than Game 1 to find the moment when the Warriors did a really, really good job on Jalen Green. In Game 1, he was played off the floor. He was 3 for 15 from the field, 0 for 4 from downtown, scored just 7 points. He was hurting the Rockets so significantly on offense, they did not close with him. They took him off the floor in clutch time once the Rockets erased that 20-point deficit and got within 3 in the fourth quarter. The Rockets and Ime Udoka decided, Jalen Green, this is not the game for you. And it was Moses Moody. Steph Curry also did a pretty good job, but it was Moses Moody for the most part who did a really, really good job on Jalen Green. The challenge for Moses Moody tonight is now to do it versus a player that's coming off of, probably considering it is a postseason game, the best game of his career, and do it from the jump, Moses. We'll see what Moses Moody has in him in this one. That challenge is only going to get elevated if the Warriors are doing it without Jimmy Butler. And again, if you're just joining us here on Warriors Live, first of all, welcome. It's Mark Randy with you. Warriors Live is presented by Xfinity, at home or on the go. You'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. If you are just joining us, our injury report from earlier, Steve Kerr asked pregame if he can say anything about Jimmy Butler and whether he's going to play tonight. Steve Kerr said, quote, not yet. He'll try to get some work done downstairs and see if he can go. So at this hour, we still yet do not know about Jimmy Butler's official status. He was asked about Gary Payton II, who's also questionable with a shoulder injury. Steve Kerr said, quote, Gary should be good to go. So good news there, at least on the Gary Payton II front. We're still going to have to wait and see, though, about Jimmy Butler as he gears up for Game 3. The Warriors back at home here at Chase Center versus the Rockets in Game number 3. We shall see. It's going to, of course, a really, really important piece of news is Jimmy Butler's status. And whenever we do get that news, hoping it's going to be in the next 30-plus minutes, I will keep you updated whenever that news does break right here on Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game. But I do think the Moses Moody, Jalen Green matchup is going to be huge on the Warriors' defensive end, and I think the Draymond Şengün one is going to be important as well. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but specifically it's going to be the assist category for Şengün. Şengün can score 25. Hell, he could score 30. And the Warriors, there's still a very easy path to victory. It's almost as if there are times when the Warriors play the Nuggets, and I'm not saying that Şengün is anywhere near the level of Nikola Jokic. But oftentimes, the way the Warriors plan to defend Jokic, and we saw this at times in the 2022 postseason in that first round, and that was a different Denver team, right? They did not have Jamal Murray. He was out. He had just torn his ACL towards the end of that regular season. They didn't have Aaron Gordon yet either, and they had a younger Michael Porter Jr. Essentially, they had Jokic, who was still amazing at that time, and then they didn't really have a lot of other reliable scorers. Not anyone that the Warriors would really fear. And that's kind of similar to the way this Houston team is. I think this Houston team has a little bit better scorers than that Denver team did, opposite outside of, their Jokic, which is Şengün, right? Like, Jalen Green is a more feared scorer than anybody else that Denver team had in 2022, and Dylan Brooks a 40% shooter from downtown and all that. I don't need to go tit for tat for those two teams, but the strategy the Warriors used back then in 2022 at times was, all right, Joker, you're going to have to beat us by yourself. You're going to have to score 50. You're going to have to grab 25 rebounds, and you're going to have to, we're going to make it tough on him to get any assists because we're just going to defend everybody else and make Jokic work hard for his 40, 50 points every single trip down versus Draymond Green, and we are going to bet that we can score enough on the other end to outscore Jokic almost by himself. That's why Jokic's numbers were so insane in that series, but the Warriors, while they were really competitive in close games, the Warriors came out on top for the most part. I think the Warriors employ a similar strategy. They're going to not necessarily encourage Şengün to score, but they're not going to overhelp to the point of leaving already questionable Houston shooters open, because I don't think Şengün is talented enough offensively to beat the Warriors by himself. He could score 30. Hell, he could score 35 in this game as long as the Warriors don't let Jalen Green, don't let Dylan Brooks, don't let Fred VanVleet, right? Don't let Amen Thompson, don't let Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason off the bench. As long as you don't let any of those guys get up around 20 points, you're probably going to win this basketball game. So I really think the key is the assist category for Şengün. How much are the Warriors helping off of their men to help Draymond versus Şengün? And are the Warriors allowing others to get going? You can get this win if Şengün scores 30. I don't know if you could get this win if Şengün scores 20 and Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks are both around 20 as well. I think that is the key. This might just be a Şengün, you got to do it by yourself kind of game. We'll see if the Warriors decide to defend that way. Okay. Time for a break here on Warriors Live. When I come back, we'll get to my Take It to the Bank prediction. Plus, I got to tell you about some of the games going on around the NBA today. I'll check in from LA on Denver and the Clippers on our out-of-town NBA game of the night. That is all coming up. Plus, we are awaiting the official decision from the Warriors. We're now an hour away from tip-off, a little bit more than an hour away from tip-off. The word from the Golden State Warriors at this moment is Steve Kerr saying, we don't yet know about Jimmy Butler. Quote, he'll try to get some work done downstairs and see if he can go. We'll let you know if there's an update when we return. It's Mark Randy with you. Warriors Live is on the air now for the next 30 minutes until the top of the hour at 5 o'clock when I'll hand it off to Tim Roy and Tom Tolbert, and they'll take you the rest of the way to tip-off and through this game. And then Evan Giddings and myself will be back for Warriors Wrap-Up tonight here on 95.7 The Game. All right, Warriors Live presented by Xfinity at home or on the go. You'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. More Warriors Live next, right here on 95.7 The Game.
Greetings, Boomtown. Ever since this neighborhood switched to Xfinity Internet,
the Wi-Fi is booming!
Xfinity combines the power of internet and mobile with one all-in plan.
So we've all got lightning-fast, secure...
East, and we got some news. This comes courtesy of Shams Charania of ESPN. Here, I'm just going to read this direct quote on Twitter from Shams Charania, ESPN senior NBA insider. The Golden State Warriors will rule Jimmy Butler out of Game 3 against the Houston Rockets tonight. Sources tell ESPN Jonathan Kuminga is starting in his place. Again, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, the Golden State Warriors are ruling Jimmy Butler out of Game 3 tonight, and Jonathan Kuminga will start in his place. Okay. All right, game on. This is big news. The Golden State Warriors, who have gone through a transformation since Jimmy Butler was acquired, are now going to have to do it without him in this game. And this is a really, really important Game 3. Series is tied at 1-1. You've already snatched home court advantage away from the Rockets. You keep home court by winning these two games, games 3 and 4 at home. If not, if you lose one, hell, if you lose both, you're going to have to win at the very least one more game back in Houston. Warriors probably feel good about their chances of doing that if Jimmy Butler returns, but that does not make a loss today acceptable by any stretch of the imagination. How about this? The Warriors in the Jimmy Butler era, and this is the team that finished the season 48-34. So they finished the season 14 games over 500. They were 16 games over 500 in the Jimmy Butler era, which means pre-Jimmy Butler, this was a below 500 basketball team. And that includes, of course, pre-Jimmy Butler included everyone the Warriors traded away to get Jimmy Butler. So this is with Andrew Wiggins and with Lindy Waters, right? And with Kyle Anderson and with Dennis Schroeder for at least a portion. The Warriors were 25-9 in the Jimmy Butler era, including 25-8 when Jimmy Butler plays. They were 24-6 when Steph and Jimmy play, and 18-4 when the starting lineup featured Steph, Jimmy Butler, Brendan Pajemski, Moses Moody, and Draymond Green. All those numbers now go straight out the window because Jimmy Butler, again, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, has been ruled out for Game 3 tonight, and it will be Jonathan Kuminga starting in his place. Okay, if there is some good news here, it does mean that Jonathan Kuminga is going to start and that he's going to fully know what his role is and what is being asked of him in this game. Game 2, it's a nearly impossible spot to put Jonathan Kuminga in, and not just because he's Jonathan Kuminga, to put any player in. Considering what Kuminga has gone through this year, one of your star players goes down with an injury early in a postseason game, and he gets his first action of the series and his first action in nearly 2 weeks as a result. That is really, really difficult. But the Warriors have had 2 days off. They've had time to practice. They've had time to game plan. And while they were hoping, I'm sure, that Jimmy Butler would play in this game, they were also operating, I am certain, under the possibility, the likely possibility that Jimmy Butler would not be able to go. And what would they do then? The answer, at least according to the starting lineup per Shams Charania, is Jonathan Kuminga. And again, if you want any good news, it is that Jonathan Kuminga has had himself 3 really awesome games versus these Houston Rockets. Go back to November 2nd in Houston. The Warriors, without Stephen Curry in that game, the Warriors get out to a big lead, a 30-point lead in Houston. They blow it. The game goes to overtime, and the Warriors win that game in overtime. And it was Jonathan Kuminga in overtime and at the end of regulation willing the Warriors, 1, to overtime, and 2, to actually win that basketball game. He scored 23 points in 26 and a half minutes. He had 6 rebounds as well. In a game in which the Warriors narrowly won in overtime, Jonathan Kuminga was a plus 18. And again, if you're just joining us, I see a couple of chats coming in on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957 The Game. I see some texts as well on our Boxer and Gerson work injury attorneys text line. Jonathan Kuminga, Jimmy Butler, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, has been ruled out for Game 3. Jonathan Kuminga will be starting in his place tonight here at Chase Center. So again, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, Jimmy Butler is out for Game 3 tonight. Jonathan Kuminga will be starting. That was just one good game for Kuminga versus these Rockets. How about December 5th at home versus the Rockets? There was no Steph and there was no Draymond in that game. The Warriors won that game as well, and it was Jonathan Kuminga who scored 33 points at that point, a career high. Also had 7 rebounds. He was 13 for 22 from the field. He made 3 of his 6 threes. He got to the free throw line 6 times. Kuminga was really good in that game. Next time the Warriors played the Rockets was December 11th in Houston. That was the NBA Cup game. Warriors lost by a single point, 91-90. It wasn't the most efficient Kuminga game, but he did score 20 points, had 7 rebounds, 8 for 20 from the field, got to the line 6 times again, but this was in the middle of that stretch where he was not shooting well from the free throw line at all. He only went 2 for 6 from the stripe, but still, 3 games played, his first 3 games versus the Rockets this year, scored 20 points at least in all of them, and then his only other action versus the Rockets this season was on Wednesday in Houston in Game 2 when he played 19 and a half minutes. Actually, this was the one at the tail end of the regular season, when the Warriors lost here at home. He played in that game 19 and a half minutes and scored 9 points on 4 for 9 shooting. But at that point, that was a Kuminga coming back off an injury and a Kuminga trying to fit in, not replacing Jimmy Butler, but trying to fit in alongside Jimmy Butler. And now tonight, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't have to deal with trying to fit in alongside Kuminga. And it's not as if Kuminga and Butler as a duo can't work. It's generally the Kuminga, Butler, and Draymond trio that doesn't work because those 3 dudes aren't able to space the floor enough alongside Steph to make that offensive group work well together. So now you throw Jonathan Kuminga in essentially for the Jimmy Butler minutes, and the Warriors do have a lot of other lineup combinations that they can make work in that one. I would imagine with this, if the Warriors do also make another change to the starting lineup, because let's just say it is Kuminga in for Jimmy Butler. That would be Steph Curry, Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green. I thought earlier that if Jimmy Butler could not play, they might start Quentin Post as opposed to Jonathan Kuminga. That is what the Warriors did to begin the second half in Houston in game number 2. That was also without Pajemski as well. At that moment, the Warriors went with Gary Payton II and Quentin Post. And in fact, as I'm talking about this right now, another update does come in from Shams Charania of ESPN. I'm going to read this verbatim for you off of Shams on Twitter. Quote, the Warriors are expected to also place rookie center Quentin Post into the starting lineup tonight against the Rockets, joining Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga in the front court. Okay, this is really interesting now. Because the Warriors have said for quite a long time that the Warriors do not really see Jonathan Kuminga as their 3. But now alongside Draymond at the 4 and Quentin Post at the 5, Kuminga is at the very least, when beginning this basketball game, is going to be playing as the Warriors 3. But does that mean that the Warriors are going to move Pajemski or Moody to the bench? Because I just got done talking about how I think Moses Moody's defense on Jalen Green is going to be one of the keys of this basketball game. Now, to be fair to Kuminga, I mentioned those games versus the Rockets earlier this season where he played really well. It's not as if he was dominant defensively, but he was a big part in limiting Jalen Green in those games as well. So the Warriors might think that Jonathan Kuminga could draw the matchup of Jalen Green, but maybe the Warriors are also trying to ease Brandon Pajemski back in after dealing with that illness. I'm not so sure. I think without Jimmy Butler, the Warriors need to put an emphasis on ball handlers, and that is more so Brandon Pajemski than Moses Moody. And without Jimmy Butler and with Jonathan Kuminga in, again, they're lacking that ball handler, and they also have a little bit of size. So we're going to have to wait and find out exactly what the starting 5 is going to be for the Warriors. If I were to guess right now, I would still guess it's going to be Steph, Pajemski, Kuminga, Draymond, and Post, because the Warriors, whether or not you're a huge fan, they really value Brandon Pajemski's ball handling alongside Steph. Otherwise, the Warriors' offense just gets a little too bogged down. We shall see. But again, the news right now out of Chase Center, and this is Warriors Live here on 95.7 The Game, presented by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Mark Randy with you live from Chase. The news is that Jimmy Butler is out tonight. He will not play. Jonathan Kuminga is starting, and Quentin Post is also in the starting lineup. That piece of news comes courtesy of Shams Charania of ESPN. Now, again, we do not yet know exactly what the other starters will be. We know it's Post, at least according to Shams. We know it's Kuminga, according to Shams. We know Draymond Green, and we know Steph. But who is Quentin Post pushing out of the starting lineup? We'll have to wait and see and figure out where the Warriors go in that one. All right. Interesting stuff here as we get ready for Warriors versus Rockets Game 3. Again, the big news, no Jimmy Butler. Jonathan Kuminga not only is going to play, but according to reports, he will start for the Warriors in this basketball game. Okay, let's get to our Take It to the Bank prediction. This is the perfect time to do it. Our Take It to the Bank prediction is brought to you by Fremont Bank, full-service banking with no compromises. I will go over 26.5 points for Stephen Curry. I hope you got it early, because I would imagine, in fact, I will let you know. I'll look and see if the number has moved with Jimmy Butler news breaking as him being out. I got it at 26.5 over-under for Steph Curry, and as I look right now, Steph's over has moved to 27.5. So now 27.5 for Steph Curry. I got it at 26.5, but hell, I would take the 27.5 as well. I think now without Jimmy Butler is going to be even more of the offensive responsibility and the offensive load on Steph Curry. And even, frankly, if Jimmy Butler was playing, I don't think we would have seen a Jimmy Butler that could carry as much of the offensive load as he has been of late. So I think regardless, Jimmy playing or not, and now we know he's not going to play, there would have been a whole lot more pressure on Steph Curry to score. And the last time, remember, the Warriors took on these Rockets at Chase Center. Steph was held to 3 points on just 1 of 10 shooting, and I think he does take that stuff personally. Plus, he has an opportunity for a little bit of history tonight. Curry is just 28 points shy of tying Tony Parker for 10th on the NBA all-time career playoff points list. He broke the 4,000 career playoff points plateau in Game 2, becoming just the 11th player to ever do that, and I think we'll see another piece of history tonight. Again, I will go Steph Curry over 26.5 points, hell, over 27.5 points, because 28 points ties Tony Parker for 10th on the NBA all-time career postseason playoff points list. 29 points means he stands alone as the player with the 10th most all-time playoff points. It is crazy that Steph is climbing up these ranks this quickly, but 28 points ties Tony Parker, and 29 would break a tie for the 10th most points in NBA postseason history by a single player. So again, I will go over on Steph Curry's points. That is our Take It to the Bank prediction, brought to you by Fremont Bank, full-service banking with no compromises. Okay, before we get back to Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga, let's get our out-of-town NBA game of the night in, which is sponsored by the San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO. This Warriors-Rockets game is the last game of the day, so there's no other upcoming games, but there were 3 other games around the association today, including one that is still currently in action. The other 2, though, OKC in Memphis, Game 4, they hold on and win 117-115, so OKC has swept the Grizzlies. That series is over, a 4-0 series sweep for OKC. They now await the winner of the 4-5 game, which is Denver versus the Clippers. I'll get to that here in just a little bit. The other final earlier today around the NBA, is the 1 seed in the East. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they dominated the Miami Heat in Miami 124-87. Cleveland now takes a 3-0 series lead as they'll try to close out a sweep as well coming up in game number 4. The other game around the NBA today is our out-of-town NBA game of the night, sponsored by the San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO, and that is the Nuggets and the Clippers, and currently in game 4 in LA, with the Clippers leading 2-1. It is a lead for the Nuggets, 62-56, about 6.5 to go in the third quarter in LA. Again, a 6-point Denver lead at 62-56. Denver desperately needs this game. The Clippers are up 2-1. If the Clippers win, it will be a 3-1 series lead for the Clippers heading back to Denver. We know 3-1 leads. It's not a done deal, but 3-1 in favor of the Clippers would feel pretty good for LA. If they do win that series, or whoever wins that series, they get to take on OKC, who just made quick work of Memphis in the first round with a 4-game sweep. That is our out-of-town NBA game of the night. Of course, it is too late to get to LA for the game. It is currently in action, but maybe you do want to plan a trip out there later in the postseason, potentially versus the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. We'll see, and if you do, SFO can get you there or anywhere else for postseason basketball. No questions asked, and that is our out-of-town NBA game of the night, sponsored by the San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO. All right, I got about 5 minutes left with you here on Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game. It's Mark Randy with you. Warriors Live, as always, presented by Xfinity. At home or on the go, you'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. If you're just joining us, first of all, welcome. Happy to have you. But you missed some news. The Golden State Warriors will be without Jimmy Butler tonight. According to Shams Charania, it has since been confirmed by Anthony Slater and various other reports as well. Jimmy Butler ruled out for Game 3, and Jonathan Kuminga is starting in his place. Shams also told us that the Warriors are expecting to also start Quentin Post in the lineup tonight against the Rockets, joining Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga in the front court. Anthony Slater said that Jimmy Butler did not get the ultimate green light from Rick Celebrini, and Monday night's Game 4 appears to be the new target for the Warriors in terms of Jimmy Butler's return to the floor, dealing with that injury, the left pelvic contusion that he suffered at the tail end of the first quarter in game number 2 in Houston back on Wednesday. It is important to keep in mind that the Warriors now don't have a lot of time off between games. They had played Sunday. That was Game 1 in Houston. They had Monday and Tuesday off. They played Wednesday in Houston, Game 2. Lost that game, of course, to even the series at a game apiece. They then had Thursday and Friday off. Now they're playing today on Saturday. They have Sunday off, then they play Monday. They have Tuesday off, then they play Wednesday. They have Thursday off, then they play Friday, and that Friday game is, of course, if necessary. This game, the series right now, is a minimum 5 games. That Friday game is Game 6, and if a Game 7 is needed, they would have Saturday off and then play Sunday for Game number 7. So only 1 day between games now for the Warriors. We'll see, though, if the Warriors have enough without Jimmy Butler, and we'll see if the limited amount of time between games hurts them. I think ever since the schedule came out and the Warriors were kind of trying to find their path to the second round, I think they told themselves, we got to be up 2-1 after 3. I think that has always been the Warriors' goal through the first 3 games of the series, because when you consider the age of this Warrior team, and I'm not even thinking about an injury to Jimmy Butler, I think just in general, but it becomes even more true now, I think, because you might not have a 100% Jimmy Butler the rest of the series. You don't know when Jimmy Butler is going to play again. Anthony Slater saying that Game 4 appears to be the new target. Well, of course it is. Not playing today, and Game 4 is what's next. And if he was, close enough to going that it was decided about an hour before tip that he could not go, then of course Game 4 is the target. But you don't know that for sure. I think most of us, myself included, thought that he was going to play today. We don't know about Game 4, but I think it just heightens the importance of this game because now your 37-year-old star has to carry a heavier load. Your other 35-year-old has to carry a heavier load. And if you don't get Game 3 today, Game 4 becomes an absolute must-win. And again, you don't quite know if you're going to have Jimmy Butler or not for that game. I do think there is reason. I don't think worry is right, but some of the numbers in the past suggest that the Warriors are not nearly as good in games 3 and 4 as they have been in other games in playoff series. In the Steve Kerr era, the Warriors 22-5 in game 1s, 20-7 in game 2s, 15-11 in game 3s, 16-10 in game 4s. Now, I think there's a big reason why there is such a drastic drop-off between games 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4, and it's because usually in the Steve Kerr era, the Warriors are the higher seed, which means they get games 1 and 2 at home. They go on the road for games 3 and 4, and generally you're going to be worse on the road than you are at home. Now, this Warrior team this year actually is as good on the road as at home. 24-17 at home in the regular season, 24-17 on the road in the regular season. So this has not quite been as dominant of a home court advantage for the Warriors of late. I don't know whether you want to blame the crowd at Chase or it falling short compared to Oracle Arena. That might be part of it. I think it's more so just who this team is as opposed to those dominant Warrior teams from the Oracle Arena era. But this has not been as dominant of a home court of late for the Warriors, but they're going to need it to be today because, again, Jimmy Butler is out for the Golden State Warriors, and we'll see where they go from here. All right. We're getting ready. We're about, 35, 36, almost 40 minutes away from tip-off here at Chase Center. Warriors taking on the Houston Rockets. Let's give me one quick look to see if we do know starting lineups just yet. Do not have any official announcement from the Golden State Warriors. According to reports, Post and Kuminga are starting. Jimmy Butler is out. We don't yet know if the other person being pushed to the bench in Game 3 is Moody or Brandon Pajemski. We will wait and see. And, of course, Tim Roy will let you know as well. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Live today, brought to you by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Tim Roy, Tom Tolbert next right here on 95.7 The Game.
It's game time, Bay Area basketball fans. Whether you're flying out to catch an away game or taking